Hi, and welcome to another Harry's Hobbies video, where I'm still working on the Foss scale models, Marshall's boat and gas dock. And this is the second building that will go onto the diorama, which is the Weaver's gas station. What you see in front of me are the two pieces that is going to have a stucco look. And to achieve this, I'm going to place these parts on just a piece of board, and this is for drying purposes a little later on down the road. Very shortly, actually. And what I'm going to do is, to achieve that stucco, faux stucco look, is I'm going to use Elmer's glue. And I'm going to place the Elmer's glue on the entire pieces. And I'm going to spread this out over the entire pieces, just using my finger, and get it to spread out all over the entire pieces, so that it covers pretty much everything. And I don't want to get a lot onto the edges where the roof will fit and where the doors will fit into. I'm going to do this on the same thing over here. And I just got a little bit in that window, but I can cut that out with an X-Acto knife later. And then once we have that spread out, I'll show you what I'm going to do. And this is going to sound and probably look a little strange, but it will work. So what I do is I get this is some very fine brown sand that you can pick up from virtually any hobby store. This costs about $4 for this it's a 1.5 pound sand. And I just take this and I put it over the entire thing, covering it up completely. Making sure I got a good heavy coat over the entire thing. And make sure you put the lid back on it before you move it around, because this stuff is not fun to clean up if you spill it, and speaking from experience. So the next part I do is I just simply take and tap it so that it actually goes into the glue. And you should notice when you do this yourself, it's going to be hard to see in the video, where the glue will actually start to kind of seep through the sand, and you'll be able to see any spots that might need a little bit, to add a little bit more to it, and get it to cover up completely, like right there in that little corner. There's another little spot right over there. Fortunately, there's enough overage that you can just take a little pinch, add it to it, and continue on. So what I'll do now is I'll simply give this ample time to dry, and I'll fire up this video back up when I get ready to shake the sand off, and we'll continue on from there.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So I'm back with the stucco walls, and this is just be a little short video. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to pick these up and tap off some of the excess sand, like so. That way they're not going to stick to the board. And I'll tap this off to get some of the excess off. And what I do with the extra is I take a piece of paper and I'm going to just pour this onto the paper. And add it back into the jar of sand so that it doesn't go to waste. You're always going to lose a little bit, but why lose a bunch? So now we have, as you can see, it's still a little wet. And we have the sand on. And after this gets completely dry, I'll scrape off where it's kind of edged into where the windows and doors need to go. And a little bit of unevenness is fine, because no stucco wall is perfect. And then after it's good and dry, I'll give it a gray coat of paint. And that'll be in the next video. I'll go through scrape it off and go through the painting process. So once again, that's it for this little short clip. And then I'll be following this up very shortly with the painting aspect.
3 hours later.
So continuing on with the stucco walls for the Wallace gas station. As you can see here, what I have done is the 2 stucco walls have still not been painted, but they have been glued together. Now I did add a support piece to straighten out the wall here, since it did warp a little bit when I had the Elmer's glue and the sand base drying. So that straightened that out. And to prevent that from happening on this particular wall, I've already added the support beam inside. So what I need to do is simply glue these 2 walls together. And that's done with using the Gorilla Glue gel. And I just add a little bit on each piece that will join the wall assemblies together, like so. And then we get them to go into place. And the reason I kind of do this in an L shape is to make it easier to line up both walls and get them to set in place to the proper angles that you're going to need. Otherwise you end up with a warped looking box that doesn't look quite right and doesn't look straight. And the good thing about this is you can kind of adjust it back and forth until that glue sets up pretty good. And this also helps when I go into the painting aspect. It helps a little bit more to keep things from warping out as well. Now while that's drying, I'm going to move on here. I have not scraped the sand from some of the seams where the doors will need to go. And that's simply done with the X-Acto knife. And you kind of go alongside and get it lined up and just kind of cut it off. That's pretty simple. Now when I go to fit the doors and the windows where the this sand is at, I may have to do a little sanding and a little bit more prep work to get the windows to fit in as tight as they should. And that'll come down the road a little bit. But this is just a little bit of basic prep to get it ready to go, so you're not fiddling around with it a little bit later on. And it also kills a little bit of time to give the glue a chance to set up before I do any kind of painting. And what I have chosen for the stucco is I'm going to start with, this is from Deco Art, which is available at any Hobby Lobby or really almost any hobby store. And this is called Gray Sky. And it's not a very dark gray. It dries a little darker than it appears when you first get it out. And then I'm just going to take, this is one of my older brushes, which is pretty well worn out, and that's from using it on things such as this. So you need to get a good coating to cover that sand up and get that brown to change its color. So you want to get it to load the brush up pretty good, and then just make sure that you're getting it into all of the ridges and spaces. That are left with the sand. And there's nothing really technical about this. And you just continue on until you have a really good coat. And the other reason I use an old brush is that if there's any super glue that has not dried up, it's not really going to bother me because I don't use this brush for any sort of heavy detail or tight work. And you continue on with the other side of the building. Again, making sure that everything gets into the tiny little spaces. And the little ridges and things that didn't take the sand, that look a little bare or something like that, well, that's kind of adds to the stucco effect and doesn't really affect the overall look. And of course I didn't get quite enough, naturally, onto that. And as you can see, that's all filled in quite nicely. And I do want to get a little bit more. And the paint also, when you're painting, it also helps that it pulls out little pieces of sand that may not have been completely glued down. And it also helps to attach them a little more firmly. And then for these walls, I'm going to start with, again, another Deco Art from Hobby Lobby. And this is a white birch satin finish paint. And this is more of a, it's not as bright white as you normally see. And once again, I'm going to just brush it across. And when I get up here by where the stucco is, I brush out so that I don't get as much on the stucco part. But keep in mind that this will all be weathered as well. So the solid colors that you see these are just the base colors. And once the signage is added and the more weathering is added, the overall look will change phenomenally. And I know it's kind of hard to tell that this wood has actually been painted, but if you don't paint it, when you go to add the weathering, especially when I use washes, which are very, very thin, and I want them to run, it has a tendency of absorbing into the wood. So this provides a base, and it kind of seals the wood up quite a bit. And then, of course, what I'll do from here is I'll shoot some pictures and put them in a slideshow. So stay tuned after this for the little slideshow that'll follow. And there's there's the stucco wall before the paint finishes drying on both sides. And here, just about forgot to paint this wall. So when I was showing that completion of the stucco, I realized that I didn't touch it. Well, that happens. Not a big deal. Because this isn't, right now this is not anything critical to the model itself other than the base coat. And I don't worry about any thicker paint inside the framework for the windows. Again, that's easily scraped off. Okay, so now that we've got all 4 walls painted instead of just 3, here we go. And that's the stucco. And then we have the whitest color, the birch. And of course this has got to take time to dry. And as I said, I'll shoot some photos and get a slideshow presentation up of this. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.